we'll talk about the skeletal tissue. Skeletal tissue is the term we use to indicate the tissue that forms the skeleton. So, skeletal tissue structures include the bones, cartilages, ligaments. Those are the skeletal tissue structures. So we'll talk about those. We'll talk about the cartilages. We'll talk about the bones. We'll talk about the types of cartilages, properties of cartilage. We'll talk about the classification of bones, markings on the bones, structure of the bone, covering of the bone, cells of the bone, and bone forming tissue, which is called the bone marrow inside the bones. So you see, skeletal tissue structures are bones, cartilages, and ligaments. We know that those are the structures form the skeleton, right? You have the bones, you have the cartilages, and ligaments connect bone to bone, one bone to another bone, mostly present in the joints, around the joint. So, among these skeletal tissue structures, cartilages and ligaments are avascular, no blood vessels. Inside the cartilage, no blood vessel, inside the ligament. But bones are vascular, that means bones have blood vessels. Okay. First, we'll talk about the cartilages. You already know that there are three types of cartilages: hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and fibrocartilage. You have also seen these cartilages under the microscope. So, hyaline cartilage is the most common type. Okay, and this type of cartilage provides support, flexibility, and resilience. Now, I already mentioned before, but I am repeating again, which structures of the body are formed by hyaline cartilage. I mentioned before, but repeating: fetal skeleton, skeleton of the fetus, the whole skeleton, right, is hyaline cartilage. Then respiratory tract cartilages, your trachea, larynx, right, those structures, bronchi, are formed by hyaline cartilage. Then articular cartilages, cartilages covering the bones at the joints. You know that in your joint the bones are covered by cartilage, right? So joint cartilages or articular cartilages. Then another structure is the costal cartilage attached to the ribs. So these are the structures formed by hyaline type cartilage. Elastic cartilage has lot of elastic fibers. Yes. Is the respiratory tract, larynx, trachea, bronchi. Okay. Elastic cartilage contains elastic fibers, and this type of cartilage has elasticity, the ability to change shape, and when you will, by pressure you can change the shape, but when you will release the pressure it will go back to its actual shape. So that's the elasticity. Which structures? Only few structures of your body. Ear, epiglottis, both start with E, so just remember those two. Fibrocartilages. Plenty of collagen fibers are present in fibrocartilage. Collagen type fibers. Now, fibrocartilaginous structures are intervertebral discs in between the vertebrae. Pubic symphysis here. The two hip bones are joined anteriorly by this piece of bone, fibrocartilage, sorry, not bone, cartilage, fibrocartilage. So another is meniscus of the knee joint. You know that in your knee joint you have meniscus, right? So those are the fibrocartilaginous structures, very tough. Bones. We divide the bones of the skeleton into two groups, appendicular bones and axial bones. Appendicular bones from the appendicular skeleton, upper and lower limbs. So bones of your upper and lower limbs form the appendicular part of the skeleton, and those bones are appendicular bones. The head, neck and the trunk, the bones of the head, neck and the trunk belong to the axial skeleton. So they form the axial part of the skeleton. So this part is the axial part of the skeleton, and upper and lower limbs belong to the appendicular skeleton. Here in this picture you see by two different colors they have shown the axial and appendicular bones. Functions of the bones. Bones provide support. Bones form the skeleton, and we know that whole skeleton supports the whole body. That is number one. Bones also provide support to the muscles. We know that most of the muscles of your body, skeletal muscles, are attached to the bones. So bones support the muscles. Protection. You know that important organs are protected by the bones. We have already talked about that, right? The brain, the heart, lungs, the pelvic organs are protected by the pelvic bones, eyeball protected by the facial bones, structures inside the mouth are protected by the facial bones. So protection. Movement. Bones form the joints, and joints are the locations where we move our body parts, right? So by forming the joints, bones help in your movement. Storage of minerals. The bones are heavily filled with calcium, magnesium. Those minerals are heavily present inside the bones. And when you're also phosphorus. So when your body needs those chemicals, the bones will release them into the blood. So from the bones, those chemicals can be released into the blood. If hypocalcemia, if in your blood the calcium goes below normal, that is hypocalcemia, in that case the bones will release the calcium into the blood. So storage of those important minerals, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, those are stored. Blood cell formation. You know, inside the bones you have red bone marrow, which is the primary site for the production of blood cells. The new blood cells are produced in the bone marrow mostly. Fats and triglycerides are the sources of energy. You know that fats provide a lot of energy. We know that if fat burns, a lot of energy is produced. Inside the bones you have fats and triglycerides. If you see the shaft of the bone of an adult person, it is filled with yellow bone marrow, which is nothing but fat. In early stage of life, everywhere you have the red bone marrow, shaft as well as at the ends. But in adults, the shaft is filled with what? Yellow bone marrow, which is what? Fats. So you see the bones store the fats inside it, inside them, and that's the source of energy. Classification of bones. We classify the bones in two ways. One is by looking at the shape, and another way is by looking at the texture. By looking at the shape, we classify the bones into 4 types. In some places you will see 5 times. I will tell you why. So, what are those 4 types? Long bones, short bones, flat bones, and irregular bones. Long bones, very simple. Long bones are long. For example, humerus, femur, radius, ulna, right? So these are long bones. Long bones have shaft, long shaft, and 2 ends, upper end, lower end. Usually 2 ends and a shaft. That's the long bone. Very simple. Short bones are cubical shaped bones, like cubes. For example, carpal bones here. See, these are cubical shaped bones, short bones, right? Now, another type of short bones, those are called sesamoid bones. You know the seed, sesame seed. If you see the barn at Burger King, when you see the tiny seeds, how you say that? Sesame. Yeah. So the bones, although not that small, but the shape is like that. Okay. So the typical sesamoid bone is this one, the patella. Okay. So in some books they have divided the bones into 5 types. Sesamoid is another type, but in your textbook, sesamoid belong to the short type bones. So that's fine. Okay. So another type of bones, they belong to flat bones. For example, sternum. This is a flat bone. Most of the cranial bones are flat bone. For example, parietal bones, occipital bone, right? They are flat but slightly curved. So usually we see the flat bones are flat but also slightly curved. If you see the sternum, slightly curved, right? Like this. Not straight. Parietal bone, slightly curved. So, flat bones. Irregular bones, they don't have any particular shape. They don't belong to long, short, or flat. Usually, we see multiple processes stick out from the bone. That's why we say irregular. For example, vertebrae. If you see a vertebrae has a body but also 7 processes stick out from the bone. Transverse processes, spinous process, right? Superior articular process, inferior articular process. So you see many structures stick out. So irregular. So those are the types of bones based on the shape. Now, based on the texture, we divide the bones into compact and spongy. So, compact bone is the hard bone and spongy bone is the soft bone, which is also called cancellous bone. So, we divide the bones that way. So, here you see in this picture long bone, flat bone, short bone, irregular bone. Okay, so by texture, compact and spongy. Spongy is also known as cancellous bone. In a long bone, we see both compact and spongy type bones. If you cut a long bone and see, the shaft is formed by compact. This part is compact. Now if you see the head part of the long bone, outer thin layer is compact bone, but inside that you will see spongy bone. That's why the end of the chicken leg you can easily crash, because you have the spongy bone there, right? Soft bone. But shaft is hard. So the compact bone forms the shaft of the long bone and the outer covering of the head. This is also compact, but inside you have honeycomb like soft bone tissue, that is the spongy. Okay? Compact and spongy. Now inside the shaft you will also see there is a cavity in the long bone that is called the medullary cavity. That contains what? In early stage of life, red bone marrow, right? But in adults, yellow bone marrow, which is what? Fat, stored form of energy. If you see the spongy bone, you see, looks like honeycomb and many processes. See in the right side. So those are called trabeculae. So trabeculae are those processes of bones inside the spongy bone. In a flat bone, if you see a flat bone, it looks like a sandwich. You know, sandwich has two pieces of buns, right, and meat inside. So it's like this. So upper and inner and outer layers are formed by compact, and inside part is the spongy bone. So that's how the compact and the spongy are present in the flat bone. Okay, markings on the bone. On the surface of the bones, you will see many different types of structures. You see some structures, some of those structures are for the attachment of the muscles and ligaments. So first we'll see which structures on the bone are for the attachment of the muscles and ligaments. Tuberosity, crest, trochanter, line, tubercle, epicondyle, spine process. So these are the structures provide attachment to the muscles and ligaments. Tuberosity is a small round structure on the bone. For example, radial tuberosity. You see, this is the radius, okay? So this bone is what? Radius. And you see a small round structure here, that is called the radial tuberosity. Okay? So it's small round structure is termed as tuberosity. Crest, narrow prominent ridge. In general term, when we use the term crest, we indicate the top part, right? We say the crest of the mountain, you see from the far, right? From far, you tell the crest of the mountain. The top part, for example, this is the hip bone, you know, and this top part is called the iliac crest here. So iliac crest. So this is an example of crest. Back muscles and abdominal muscles come like this down and get attached to this area. Trochanter. Trochanter is a large irregular bony mass on the bone. Large piece of irregular bone. So irregular, large, bony mass. Example, this is the hip bone, and this structure you see on the top of the, not hip bone, femur, the top of the femur, this is called greater trochanter. It's a large piece of irregular bony structure. Okay, so that's the trochanter. Gluteal muscles come down and get attached to the trochanter. Line. Sometimes we see lines on the bones. For example, in the back of the femur, of the shaft, you have 3 lines. In the lower part, you have 2 lines like this. Those are called supracondylar lines, and here this is called linea aspera. So you see there are 3 lines here, linea aspera, this line, and then it divides like this, splits like this, and form the supracondylar lines. So just those are the examples of lines on the bones. Tubercle. Tubercle is like baby tuberosity. Tuberosity is round structure. If the round structure is very small, usually we use the term tubercle. Small rounded projection. Tubercles are present. Let me give you an example. In the clavicle, in the lower surface of the clavicle, there, when you see the bone, you will see a tubercle here. Small round, kind of round structure. Okay. In the clavicle. Epicondyle. Epicondyle is a raised area above a condyle. So, if, just think this way, you sometimes, you know, you have a small child, and your child, if your child doesn't want to walk, so what you do? Say, Dad, I am tired, right? So you take him on your shoulder, right? So you are condyle and your son sitting on your shoulder is epicondyle. So epicondyle sits on the condyle. Spine, sharp projection. Example, spinous process of the vertebrae. So this is an example of spine. Process. Any structure can be termed as a process that gets out from the main part of the bone. So if this is the main part of the bone, this is the main part of the bone. If something sticks out like this, this can be termed as a process. Okay, something like this. These are the processes stick out from the main part of the bone. So those are the structures we see. For example, process, transverse processes. These two are transverse processes. Okay? Superior articular process we have in the vertebrae. Inferior articular process we have. This is the styloid process, very sharp. This is the mastoid process. So all these are processes. Okay? So we'll see many processes when we will study the bones. Okay. Now the structures that help to form joints. So in the bone you have some structures, they help to form the joints, not for the attachment of muscles or ligaments, but to form the joints. So which structures form the joint? Head of the bone. You know, this is the head of the humerus, and this part, head of the humerus, articulates with the scapula, shoulder blade bone, and forms the shoulder joint, right? This is the head of the femur, you know that forms the hip joint, right? So head part is the part that forms the joint. Facet, smooth, nearly flat surface. If you see on the bone, an area which is flat, and if you touch that area, this is important, you will feel it's very smooth, and that smooth flat surface gets attached to another smooth flat surface of another bone like this and forms the joint. Okay, so two flat surfaces form the joint. So that is known as facet. So this is one facet, this is another facet. When you will study the vertebrae, you will see what superior articular process of the vertebrae below articulate with the inferior articular process of vertebrae above. So see here, this is one vertebrae, this is another vertebrae. From the vertebrae above, this is the inferior means below, right? Articular process, and this is the superior articular process of the vertebrae below, and they get attached like this. Okay, so these are the flat surfaces, facets. Make sense? So two facets get together to form the joint. Flat, smooth surface. You will see in the vertebrae. Condyle. Condyle, I have already showed you these large round structures. These are two condyles at the lower end of the femur, and on the condyle you have the epicondyles, right? So condyles are not for the attachment of the muscles. Condyles are for the joints. Epicondyles are for the attachment of the muscle. That's why we talked about the epicondyle before. Now we are talking about the condyle. Ramus. If you see an arm-like structure in the bone, that part is called the ramus. So for example, here you see this is the, which bone is this? Anybody? Mandible. So you see, if you look from the side, this is like arm, this is like forearm, right? Like this, arm, forearm. So this arm-like part is called the ramus. So this is the ramus of the mandible. Now the upper end of the ramus, you see here, forms the joint, temporomandibular joint, TMJ. So the ramus, upper part of the ramus forms the joint. So those are the structures usually form the joints. Now we'll see the depressions and openings in the bone. On the bone, you will also find depressions like this. If this is a bone, if I see like depressed area, that is the depression. And also in the bones you have openings. If you see the bottom of the skull, you will find many openings like this. This is the largest one, foramen magnum, right? So there are many. So in the bones we have also openings. You see here this one, here, this is a big opening here in the hip bone. So first we'll see the structures formed by the depressions and openings. Meatus. Meatus is a canal-like passageway. So if it is like a tunnel, sometimes you drive and you pass through the tunnels, right? So if it is like this, like a tube or tunnel inside the bone, that is termed as a meatus. Example, external acoustic meatus. You see here, this is the external acoustic meatus, so it's going in like a tunnel, like a tunnel. Sinus. cavity inside the bone, and that cavity contains air. So air containing cavity inside the bone is a sinus. Make sense? In some facial bones, you have sinuses. For example, maxillary sinus. Inside the maxilla, this bone is the maxilla. Inside the maxilla, you have a big sinus. Maxillary sinus. That's the cavity. Sometimes you know that sinusitis, inflammation occurs inside that is called sinusitis. Fossa, shallow basin-like depression. So if you see the depression on the bone is like this, like a kind of round depression, that is a fossa. And why we have fossa on the bones? Fossa usually hold some important structures. For example, there is a fossa, the sphenoid bone here, that is called the hypophyseal fossa. You will see that when you study the bones. Hypophyseal fossa contains the pituitary gland, a very important, right? Master gland, you know that, sits in that fossa. Pituitary is also called hypophysis. That's why it is called the hypophyseal fossa, to hold the pituitary gland there, like this. Okay. Groove. Groove is a depression on the surface of the bone, but not basin-like. It's long depression. For example, any tendon, ligament, or blood vessels or nerve can fit in it. So now you can think, right? Think. It is a narrow groove or depression. That is a groove, also called sulcus. Groove is also called sulcus. Narrow, elongated depression that can, hold a tendon or a ligament or a muscle or a blood vessel. Fissure. If you see openings in the bone like this is round or almost round. This opening is called a foramen if it is round or almost round. Now if it is narrow, elongated like this, that is called a fissure. So this is a fissure and this is a foramen. So both are openings. So fissure is narrow, elongated passage opening, and round is, or almost round is, foramen. We have fissures inside the orbital fossa. When you look through the orbital fossa, you will find two fissures like this: superior orbital fissure, inferior orbital fissure. Long. Now, foramen, you have many. This is foramen magnum. It's almost round, right? So, those are the depressions and openings we see in the bones. So I'm quickly going over again, just to make it clear to you. There are many different types of structures on the bone. These are for the attachment of the muscles and ligaments. These are to form the joints. These are to form the joints, and these are for the passage of the nerves, blood vessels, or to hold some important organs or structures. Looks like. That's the definition, right? So for all these, the definition is how they look like. So small round is tubercle, right? Larger round is tuberosity. Large irregular mass is trochanter, right? So that's the definition, as well as, structure of a long bone. So if I ask you a basin-like depression, right, on the bone, that is called what? Basin-like depression on the bone, fossa. Okay. For example, hypophyseal fossa for pituitary gland. Make sense? If you see an opening like this, that is what? Round foramen. If it's long, fissure, right? If you see a depression like a basin-like depression, that is what I said again, fossa, right? If you see the depression is long, that's a groove or sulcus. Make sense? So, if you see a canal like passageway, meatus, right? So, just try to remember those things. Structure of a long bone. A long bone has, you already know, two ends and a shaft. So two ends are connected by a shaft. The ends are also called epiphyses. S is singular. So this is one epiphysis, this is another epiphysis. Now, since the long bone has how many? Two. That's why we use the term epiphysis, that is plural. Okay? SIS is singular. If I indicate only one, this is epiphysis. Now if I indicate both together, epiphysis. And the shaft is called a diaphysis, since it is only one, SIS. So shaft is diaphysis. So ends are epiphysis and shaft is diaphysis. Okay. You already know that at the ends you have both spongy and compact bone. We have talked about that. Outer covering is compact, inner is spongy, right? Filled with spongy bone. And in the shaft you have the compact bone. Now one thing important to remember, why you have spongy bone. Remember, spongy bone is like honeycomb, right? You know that? That means a lot of spaces inside. And those spaces are filled with red bone marrow. Remember always. That's why you have spongy bone. To give space for red bone marrow. Okay? So always remember, where you have the spongy bone, you have the red bone marrow throughout the life. Make sense? Throughout the life, you have red bone marrow there.
So in the medulla cavity, then you're saying that's yellow?
Yeah, because that's not the spongy bone, that's the cavity, right? So that red bone marrow turns to yellow bone marrow. Make sense? Inside the shaft in adult, right? So eventually the red bone marrow inside the medullary cavity becomes what? Yellow bone marrow. But I told you, where you have the spongy bone, always remains what? Red bone marrow. Make sense? So now if I ask you, in adults, where you will find the red bone marrow? At the ends, right? Where you have the spongy bone. Inside the flat bone, right? Make sense? You remember sandwich? You have a spongy bone inside. So you always have red bone marrow throughout the life in those spongy bones. They produce new blood cells. Okay. The coverings of bone is called, outer covering is called the periosteum. So you see, around the bone you have the tough membrane that covers the bone, that is called periosteum. Peri means around, you know, right? Peri means what? Around. So periosteum. Osteum means bone. So around the bone, periosteum, that's the membrane covered. Now there is another soft membrane in the inner surface of the compact bone here, that is around the medullary cavity. You know, this is the medullary cavity, contains red or yellow bone marrow. So here this membrane is called the endosteum. Endo means inside. So periosteum and endosteum. Now if I cut like this, it will be like this. This is periosteum, outer covering. This is the periosteum, and this is the endosteum. Okay, so those two are the coverings. First, we'll see the structure of the periosteum. Periosteum has two layers: outer fibers, inner osteogenic layer. So periosteum has two layers: outer fibers, inner osteogenic. Remember one thing I mentioned before: where you have a lot of fibers, that structure is very tough in your body. Okay, so that is simple. Where you have a lot of fibers, that structure is very tough. So here in periosteum, outer layer is what? Fibers. So that is very tough, right? And that gives the protection. And always outer layer should give the protection, right? So that's why it is fibers. So easy to remember if I ask you, right? Which one is fibers layer? Outer one, because outer one gives the protection. That must be tough. That can be soft. Inner layer is called osteogenic. Osteo means bone. Genesis means production. So inner layer produces new bone tissue. Inner layer is for what? New bone tissue. Outer layer is for what? Fibers protection. Make sense? So inner layer contains the cells of the bones. What are the cells present in the inner layer? Osteoblasts, osteoclasts, and osteogenic cells. Now, in this inner layer, periosteum, you have outer tough layer, fibers, inner soft layer, osteogenic. Osteogenic layer has osteoblasts. Osteoblasts produce matrix of the bone. Produce the matrix. Osteogenic cells, these are stem cells, produce new bone cells. So now you see that these two types of cells are helping to form new bone tissue, because we know that tissue consists of what? Cells and matrix, right? So to form new cells, you need osteogenic cells. To form new matrix, you need osteoblast. So these two types of cells are very important to produce new bone tissue. Osteoclasts are another type of cells present in the bone. These cells, just know that, are giant, big, giant cells, and like wrestlers. Okay, now sometimes I see the wrestling, giant people, right? Big, they love to destroy. Okay, so osteogenic cells, osteoclasts are giant cells, and they love to destroy. Destroy what? The matrix. Just know that osteoclasts destroy the matrix. Who forms the matrix? Osteoblasts. Who destroy the matrix? Osteoclasts. Okay, and both are important. Both are what? Important. And inside your body, both are happening simultaneously at the same time throughout the life. Make sense? Throughout the life, both the destruction and formation of matrix are occurring all the time. In early stage, which one is more, destruction or production? Right? That grows the bones, right? And when you get old, destruction starts to occur, right? Production is less. That's why bones get what? Weak, right? So, but both are happening throughout the life. And that is called what? Bone remodeling. Just remember that. Bone remodeling indicates both the production and the destruction. Formation and destruction together is called remodeling. Okay. Just remember those I mentioned. So here you see periosteum and endosteum, where you will find the red bone marrow. I have already mentioned, so you know. In adults, just remember, what you have to remember, where you have the spongy bone, right? Always you have red bone marrow. So in adults, the red bone marrow is found at the ends of the long bones and inside the flat bones. You must remember, inside the flat bone you have like sandwich, the spongy bone. So always inside the flat bones you have the red bone marrow, and in adults at the ends where you have the spongy bone. But in early stage, very simple, everywhere you have red bone marrow. 4 types of cells. I have already mentioned 3 types, right? Osteoblasts produce matrix. These are young cells. Blast, remember the term blast indicates young. So, osteoblasts are young bone cells. Osteogenic are the stem cells, and osteoclasts are the giant cells that destroy the matrix. Another type of cells, those are the mature cells called osteocytes. Cytes are mature and blasts are young. So osteocytes are the mature cells inside the bones. You will see when you have already seen under the microscope, the osteocytes are located inside the lacunae. So this is osteocyte, and this is the cavity, small cavity, that is called the lacunae. Okay. So we see the osteocytes inside the lacunae. Here you see the picture of those 4 types of cells. One thing you see, osteoblast and osteoclast. You see, osteoclasts are giant and have many nuclei inside, because these cells love to do what? Destroy. So they need more power, right? So they have many mitochondria, many nuclei inside. Other cells have single nucleus. Okay, now in this part of the skeletal tissue, quickly, the structure of the bone. You already know, I showed you before the structure of the bone. The bone is formed by many columnar structures. So if you must remember, I showed you before. Did I? So like this. Okay. So your compact bone is like this. Many columnar structures are bundled together to form the compact bone, right? And each column is the structural unit. Makes sense, right? The structural unit, and that is called the osteum or Haversian system. So osteum is the unit. the column. Now if I make a cross section of compact bone, then I will see what? I will see the round, right? So that's what you see in the pictures. You see circles like this. So each circle is one column, osteum. This is the osteum, central canal in the center for the blood vessels and nerves, and then around that you have the lacunae. I just showed you a few minutes ago. The small cavities, they contain the osteocyte. So these are the osteocytes. Okay, osteocytes, like tiny spider. You can say this is central canal. Central canal contains the blood vessels and nerves. This is lacunae, contain the osteocyte. So osteocyte in the lacunae. Okay. And now in between the lacunae you have the matrix of the bone. The matrix is very hard, and this hard matrix of the bone is called lamella. So lamella is the hard matrix of the bone. Now just know another thing. Since the osteocytes are housed inside the lacunae, they need oxygen and nutrition. So you have blood vessel here. So from here fine channels go to the lacunae. Also the lacunae are connected to each other by fine channels, thin, very thin. They are like channels. So the fluid can go from here to here and here to here. So the cells will get the nutrition and oxygen. Make sense? They are connected. If no connection, then they will not get any nutrition, oxygen, right? If it's like sitting inside the lacunae, no fluid is getting in, then we will not get any oxygen, nutrition. Make sense? So these fine channels are called canaliculi. Canaliculi. So that's the structure of the compact bone. Let's see here the picture is showing the osteon. You see in the left side osteon, there are many osteons, right? One circle is an osteon, and you have central canal, you have osteocyte, you have lamella, right? You have lacunae. So those structures I have explained you. You also know that the trabeculae are present in spongy bone, not in compact bone. Okay, trabeculae are the processes in spongy bone. Now we will see the chemical composition of the bone. We know the bone has two types of chemicals, osteoid and mineral salts. Osteoids are organic chemicals of the bone, and mineral salts are inorganic. So you have both organic and inorganic. Mineral salts are inorganic. Okay, so you have both organic and inorganic chemicals in the bone. Now, organic osteoid consists of ground substances and fibers. That's the organic part. And so ground substances and fibers. Okay. Fibers are collagen fibers, the most common type connective tissue fibers, collagen fibers. And ground substance consists of two types of chemicals. See, proteoglycans and glycoproteins. So ground substances consist of proteoglycans and glycoproteins, and fibers are collagen fibers. So that's the organic part. Now the inorganic part consists of mineral salts, and the mineral salts form about 65% of bone mass, and the mineral salts include the calcium phosphate crystals mainly. You already know. You remember 3 minutes ago I said bone stores minerals. Remember that one important function of the bone, storage of minerals. And at that time I mentioned which minerals? Calcium, phosphate. I also added magnesium, right? So the main was calcium and phosphate. So you already know that the mineral salts, calcium, phosphate, and those are stored heavily in the bone. If your body needs, the bone will release them. Okay, and so that's the chemical composition of the bone. Formation of bone. You must remember, in infants, in very early stage of life, the entire skeleton is formed by what? Anybody? Entire skeleton is what? Hyaline cartilage, right? Fetal skeleton, hyaline type cartilage. So those hyaline cartilages must be converted to what? Bone. Gradually they become the bone. So we know that the cartilages become bone. Now the bones are formed from two sources. Most of the bones come from cartilages. Most of the bones come from what? The cartilages. Okay? Because we know that fetal skeleton is cartilage, right? Hyaline cartilage. So most of the bones come from the cartilages, and the process is called intrachondral, also known as endochondral. Intra, endo, same thing. Intra means inside, endo means inside. Endochondral ossification. Ossification is the process of bone formation. So you see, when the bones are formed from the cartilages, what type of cartilages? Hyaline cartilages, right? That process is called intrachondral. Chondro means cartilage, intra means inside. So same thing, endochondral. So coming from cartilage. Chondro means cartilage. So coming from inside the cartilage. Ossification is bone formation. Okay, ossification means bone formation. Few bones of your body come from membrane. That's why that process is called intramembranous. Intramembranous ossification. Make sense? So if the bones come from the membrane, intermembranous ossification, right? Come from the cartilage, endochondral or intrachondral ossification, because chondro means cartilage. So those are the two processes of ossification or bone formation. Okay. Which bones come from the membrane? Only few bones, most of the flat bones and the clavicles. Okay, so remember the clavicles, I may ask you, the clavicles and most of the flat bones come from membrane by intermembranous ossification. Rest of the bones come from what? Cartilages. What type of cartilages? Hyaline cartilage, right? Because fetal skeleton is hyaline cartilage. And that's the endochondral ossification. Now what I'll do, I'll just briefly explain you these two types of ossification. First, let's see intrachondral ossification. Just remember what I say here. That is a must. Then other things you can remember, of course. But intrachondral ossification occurs through few changes. First, we know that cartilage. So this is the hyaline cartilage in fetus. So okay. So first, one thing happens inside the cartilage. In the center of the cartilage, these cells we know that cartilage consists of chondrocytes, right? Chondro means cartilage. So these cells, chondrocytes, will be converted to osteoblasts. Okay. So chondrocytes become osteoblasts. Osteoblasts will become osteocytes because osteoblasts are young cells, right? First will form osteoblasts, then will become osteocytes. Okay, so then these young cells will become what? Osteocytes. Now these cells go through the process that is called hypertrophy. They will enlarge, get bigger, and this is interesting. Something happens. What happens? These cells get larger and occupy more space. And after that, eventually these cells will burst, will die, and form a cavity inside it. This is called the medullary cavity. Inside the shaft. And that is number one. And the area where the cells, chondrocytes become osteoblasts and osteocytes, this area is called primary ossification center. Primary ossification center, because this is the first center that will appear from where the ossification or bone formation will begin. So just write it down that in the center of the cartilage, the primary ossification center is formed. That is number one. Number two, where the cells are converted to osteocytes and they start to get bigger and eventually die. So a medullary cavity is formed, okay, due to the death of those cells. So first those cells occupy more space, then number two, what happens next is thin bony collar is formed around the shaft. So bony collar is formed around the shaft. That is next step. And also secondary ossification centers appear at the ends. So these are called secondary because they are appearing later. This is the first one, so primary, and these are secondary ossification center. Two will appear at the ends, primary in the shaft, middle of the shaft, but secondary at the end. And from these ossification centers also, what will happen, from these centers, the bone tissue will be formed. So you have medullary cavity here already. And then next, what happens? Blood vessel penetrate through the shaft and start to branch like this. So, formation of blood vessels. Blood vessels. Okay. Okay, so that's what happens next. And now what happens from primary, the bone tissue gradually is formed this way, and from secondary bone tissue is formed and grow this way. So if this is the area from where from secondary the bone tissue is growing, and from here bone tissue is growing like this, and this thick plate is gradually getting narrow, and this is hyaline cartilage. We know that hyaline cartilage becomes the bone and gets narrow. So same thing here. So basically bone tissue grows from both primary towards both ends and from secondary towards the center, and this is the growth plate. This plate is called the growth plate. Okay, this is also growth plate. So we know that osteoblasts produce the matrix, so matrix will be produced, so bone tissue will be formed. From here bone tissue will be formed, and this part is still hyaline cartilage, but it will gradually become bone. Still hyaline cartilage will gradually get narrow. Eventually what will happen, when they will meet, you will see a thin line here that is left there. A thin piece of hyaline cartilage will be left there after the completion of bone formation. That's the epiphyseal line, because this is a line like thin, but this is a hyaline cartilage, remember, and that remains throughout the life. In adults you have epiphyseal line, and inside you have the thin plate of hyaline cartilage. That's a weak location, weak point in your bone. Fracture can easily occur there. Okay, so that's the way how endochondral ossification occurs. I will quickly just go over. Endochondral ossification occurs in the hyaline cartilage. First, a primary ossification center will appear, and the cells will become the bone cells. The cartilage cells will become the bone cells. They will grow, get bigger, hypertrophy, and will burst. So a medullary cavity will be formed. Okay, and some osteoblasts will produce matrix, and the bone cells for bone tissue will be formed. Then the collar, thin bony collar, will be formed around the shaft, and two more ossification centers, those are called the secondary ossification centers, will appear at the ends, and osteoblasts will produce the matrix to form the bone. And the cartilage that is located between secondary and primary, that's the growth plate, and gradually it gets thin as the bone growth continues, and will remain as a thin plate that is called the epiphyseal line from outside, and inside that's the epiphyseal plate. So two things here. From outside, if you see the bone, you will see the epiphyseal line. Line is seen from outside, but inside the line you have thin piece of hyaline cartilage. That's the epiphyseal plate. That's the weak point, right? Where the fracture can easily occur. So that's how the endochondral ossification. So just remember those few steps. If I ask you to explain endochondral ossification, just write down those things. Okay, I have mentioned.
In about 5 steps.
Yeah, like about 5 steps. Yeah, you can clearly from membrane. So let's see the membrane. This is the membrane that is called mesenchyme. Mesenchymal membrane. That means mesenchyme is embryonic tissue. So we can say embryonic mesenchymal membrane. First, we know that in connective tissue, so this is mesenchyme is embryonic connective tissue, has fibroblasts. So these are the fibroblasts. So first, the membrane, mesenchymal membrane, has fibroblasts. Okay. Few fibroblasts, those are located in the center of the membrane, will be converted to osteoblasts. So these fibroblasts will become what? Osteoblasts. So fibroblasts will become osteoblasts in the center of the mesenchymal membrane. Now next, what happens? We all know that fibroblasts are young cells and they produce matrix. So these fibroblasts will produce plenty of matrix that will be secreted. This matrix is soft now. Okay. And then next what happens, you see, the matrix turns to hard. After secretion, the matrix becomes hard matrix, and that is called the lamella. We already know lamella is the hard matrix of the bone. And as the matrix gets harder, the osteoblasts get older. Make sense? Osteoblasts gradually get what? Older. Now, you tell me, young people are healthy, right? Old, as we get older, we shrink, our body gets smaller, right? So osteoblasts are healthy, bigger, but when the osteoblasts get old, shrink. So the osteoblasts will get smaller. As they get older, they will get smaller. So osteoblasts will get smaller and will get processes like spider mentioned before. So that's the osteocyte. So osteoblast will become old, and that is the osteocyte. We know that. Now you see one thing happens here. Since the matrix is already hard, right? Matrix is hard, and inside the hard matrix, you have hard matrix, the osteoblast is getting smaller. So what will happen? The matrix is hard, so it will not move anymore, right? It is already hard, solid. So what will happen? A space will be created. Does it make sense? A space will be created because hard matrix will not move anymore, but the cells are getting smaller. So that space is called what? You all know that. Lacunae. Remember, the lacunae are the cavities inside. You have the osteocytes. Why? How the lacunae is formed? This is the way. Hard matrix is here. Now the cell is getting small, right? So a space will be created around the cell. So that's the lacunae. So that process starts in the center, and then eventually same thing happened around the center. So just know that these are the few things in intermembranous ossification. I am repeating again. Occurs in mesenchymal membrane. It is a connective tissue, embryonic connective tissue membrane, contains fibroblasts. The fibroblast in the center will become osteoblast, will produce matrix, and the matrix will become hard matrix, that's the lamella of the bone, and then the osteoblast will get older, become osteocytes and smaller. So the cavity will be formed, that's the lecture. Okay, so that's how intramembranous ossification occurs. I may ask you in the test, write down few steps of endochondral or intramembranous ossification. Okay, so you'll just mention those two things. Blood supply to a long bone. A long bone has 3 sets of blood vessels. How many sets? 3 sets. So again, this is the long bone. Okay, the blood vessels that enter into the bone through the middle of the shaft, that is the nutrient vessels, okay. Artery and vein both pass through the shaft and branch like this. Okay, so that's the nutrient blood vessels. Another set of blood vessels that enter through the epiphyseal line. You must remember I talked a few minutes ago where the primary secondary join the line through that area, and that blood vessel is called the metaphyseal vessels. Okay, metaphyseal vessels. S-E-A-L, metaphyseal vessels. Okay, then another set of blood vessels present only in the periosteum, the covering of the bone. You know that covering, tough membrane, that's the periosteum here. So that set of blood vessels only in the periosteum, not really in the bone. So that is the periosteal blood vessels. Okay, so those are 3 sets of blood vessels. Supply to the long bone. So here you see through the middle of the shaft, nutrient, through the epiphyseal line or plate area, that's the metaphyseal. And now if you only see the periosteum, the membrane, that one has the periosteal blood vessels. Okay, we have talked about the remodeling. Hormones work on the bones. Growth hormone, thyroid hormone, and sex hormones. So these are the hormones work mainly. These are the hormones work on the bones. Growth hormone, just know that growth hormone comes from the pituitary gland. Comes from where? Pituitary gland. It is a pituitary hormone, and it stimulates the growth of the bones. So growth hormone stimulates the growth of the bones, and that's why during the early stage of life more growth hormone secretion occurs, right? Because that's the time when the bones grow. Thyroid hormone that comes from the thyroid gland modulates the activity of growth hormone. So it doesn't work directly on the bones, but it modulates the activity of the growth hormone. So by modulating the activity of the growth hormones, it helps in the growth of the bone, enhances the activity of the growth hormone. Sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen. These hormones start to get released at puberty more and promote the growth of the bones. And that's why you see the kids suddenly grow a lot at puberty, right? At puberty, at around puberty, suddenly the body grows. If you see, like 2 years ago, you saw the boy, right, or girl has grown a lot because of the influence of what? Sex hormones. Is it clear? Okay, so those are the hormones come from outside, right? Come from outside. For example, growth hormone comes from where? Pituitary. Thyroid hormone from thyroid, right? And sex hormones, we know that from gonads, mostly testes and ovaries. They come from outside but work on the bones, right? And help in the growth of the bones. Now, there are few hormones. They help in not the growth of the bones but regulation of calcium in the blood. Calcium homeostasis, regulation of calcium in the blood. Just to know the name: thyroid hormone, parathyroid hormone, and vitamin D. Thyroid hormone decreases the calcium in the blood. This is the thyroid. Parathyroid hormone comes from the parathyroid gland, and that increases, so opposite, thyroid and parathyroid, opposite action, increases the calcium in the blood. Okay. So by the action of these two, your calcium, blood calcium is controlled or regulated. If blood calcium is low, parathyroid hormone will be released more, right, to increase. If the calcium concentration is high, then thyroid will be released to lower. Most of the time, calcium concentration goes, instead of going up, it goes down. So parathyroid hormone is released more to increase the calcium. Okay. Vitamin D, although it is not a hormone, vitamin D, remember, vitamin D is very important to absorb the calcium from the food. To absorb what? Calcium from the food you eat, right? So it works in the intestine where the food, right, is nutrients are absorbed. So vitamin D works in the intestine to absorb the calcium from the food you eat. So more vitamin D means what? More absorption of calcium. Your body will get more calcium. Make sense? So that's why if someone has lack of calcium, the doctors tell take vitamin D. Okay? That will help to make the bones healthy. Make the bones what? Healthy. Makes sense, right? Vitamin D. More calcium means what? The bone matrix will be stronger, right? Because we know that bone is heavily filled with calcium. Okay. Just know the name of the thyroid hormone. There are 3 different types of thyroid hormones. The thyroid hormone that lowers the calcium, I mentioned here, thyroid hormone decreases the calcium in the blood. The name of that thyroid hormone is calcitonin. So calcitonin is the thyroid hormone that lowers the calcium. Now quickly, just know that calcitonin works on the bones and kidneys to lower the calcium. Now you must remember that in your bone you have one type of cells, giant cells. Remember that? Anybody remember the name of those giant cells? Osteoclasts. They love to do what? Destroy what? The matrix of the bone, okay? Destroy the bones, matrix of the bones. Now you tell me, you know all these things. The matrix of the bones are heavily filled with which mineral? Calcium and phosphate. Remember that? Okay, so you know all those things, right? Now you tell me, if I stimulate the osteoclast stimulate the activity of osteoclast, then osteoclast will do what? What more? Will break the matrix more. Make sense? If osteoclast break the matrix, then who will come out? Calcium will come out. Is it clear? And calcium will enter, this is important to know, calcium will enter into the blood from the bone. So blood level of calcium will go what? Up. Is it clear? Now calcitonin does what? Not stimulate, inhibit the osteoclasts. So osteoclasts remain quiet, don't break the matrix. Calcitonin inhibits the osteoclasts. So osteoclast will not do anything. Make sense? Will not break the matrix. So calcium will not come out, will not enter into the blood. So blood level of calcium will go down by suppressing the osteoclast, right? So that's the action on the bone, calcitonin. Now you tell me, this is a very simple question. If you want to lower the blood calcium, you should let the calcium get out through the urine or preserve it. You want to lower the calcium in the body or blood. Let it go, right? So calcitonin does it on the kidneys. Let the calcium get out with the urine. And how it does it? That by stopping reabsorption. What happens in the kidneys, just remember, reabsorption means taking back, retention. Into the body from the urine. So this term, reabsorption, is heavily used in urinary system. Reabsorption means taking back from the urine inside the kidney. So when the urine is produced inside the kidney, some chemicals are taken back into the body. Calcitonin prevents reabsorption. So it stops reabsorption of calcium. So calcium will not be taken back from the urine into the body. So it will get out from the body. Make sense? If I stop reabsorption of anything, that will get out from the body with the urine. Is it clear? If I increase the reabsorption, that means it will be preserved in the body. It will be taken back into the body. So just know, if you just think simple, it is easy. Stopping osteoclast, right, will prevent the destruction of matrix. Make sense? So calcium will not get out from the bone. It will stay there, right? Another is, if I let the calcium get out with the urine by stopping reabsorption, that means stopping taken back into the body, then calcium will go down. So those are two ways. Calcitonin lowers the calcium. Just know that parathyroid hormone just does opposite. We know that parathyroid hormone increases the calcium. So it will stimulate the osteoclast, right? So osteoclast will break the matrix. Calcium will get out from the bone, will enter into where? The blood. So blood level of calcium will go up. Make sense? Does it make sense? No? So osteoclast, if you stimulate the osteoclast do what? Break the matrix. Break the matrix means calcium will get out from the matrix, right? Will enter, I told you, will enter where? Into the blood. Blood level of calcium will go up. Make sense? That is one, parathyroid hormone. Another is in the kidney. Now think about kidney. If parathyroid hormone wants to increase the blood level of calcium, should it let go, get out, or preserve? Preserve, right? So increase reabsorption. Increases reabsorption. That means taken back into the body. So those two, just opposite action of calcitonin. Parathyroid hormone has another additional action, that is the activation of vitamin D, calcitriol. Vitamin D absorbs the calcium from the food we eat. We know that. So if you can increase the vitamin D activity, that will increase more absorption of calcium from the food, blood level of calcium will go up. So first two actions are just opposite on the bones, osteoclasts, and on the kidneys. Bones and kidneys. And in case of parathyroid, you have additional action, that's the vitamin D, stimulating the production of vitamin D. Here just know why calcium is important in your body. Calcium is a very important mineral, helps in transmission of nerve signal transmission, muscle contraction, blood clot formation or coagulation, secretion by the glands and nerves, and cell division. All these actions need calcium. Here just the same thing that I mentioned. One thing you remember here, the blood concentration of calcium. Concentration of calcium in your blood must be between 9 to 11 milligram per 100 milliliter of blood. That means 1 deciliter. 100 milliliter equals to 1 deciliter of blood. So this is the normal concentration of calcium in your blood, which is very important, maintaining this concentration. If it is below 9, it is called hypocalcemia. Above 11, hypercalcemia. Both are harmful. That's why it is important. That's why those two hormones are important too, right? That regulate the calcium in the blood. Calcitonin and parathyroid hormone. Need those two. Fracture is the last thing, I believe. Probably not, I don't know. So the fracture of the bones. We name the fracture based on a number of things. So just few examples here. We'll talk about few different types of fracture of the bones. Comminuted type fracture. If you see, the fracture has multiple fractures in that area. Where you got the fracture, you have multiple fractures. Usually happens in older people when the bone is very fragile. When fracture occurs, we see multiple fractures at the same location. That is called comminuted type fracture. Older people get this type of fracture more. Compression. Usually vertical pressure, like if you jump from height, very high, you know, when you land, a lot of pressure this way falls on the vertebrae, right? So that causes the crush of the vertebrae. That's the compression type fracture. Spiral, a single fracture, and it looks like an oblique, not like transverse. It is an oblique fracture like this. Usually happens due to twisted pressure. Like this kind of pressure will cause spiral fracture, oblique, not transverse. Okay? That is the spiral. Epiphyseal. How many of you remember epiphyseal plate after ossification, right? You remember I told you this is a weak point, right? The thin plate of cartilage remains throughout the life, right? That's a weak point, and often fracture occurs there. That's the epiphyseal fracture, where you have thin cartilaginous plate. Depressed. If you see, after the fracture, the broken piece of bone has gone inwards. So the broken piece of bone goes inwards, that is the depressed type fracture. For example, if something hits the skull from outside, the broken piece will go towards the brain. Usually, a road accident or earthquake can cause that kind of, we see that kind of fracture in war. Green stick type fracture, this happens usually in young children. When fracture occurs, we see incomplete fracture. That means the bone is not completely, divided. It's a partial fracture, and from the fracture, main fracture, we see interestingly, so this is not a complete fracture, like this is the fracture, and from the main fracture, we see branching, like this. So this is the green stick type fracture, often occurs in the young children because their bone is more flexible and bent, right? More. Not done yet. So, healing of the fracture, we should talk about that a little bit. So after the fracture, we know what happens, right? Healing of fracture occurs. Just know the steps. When fracture occurs, we know that inside the bone you have blood vessels. Cartilage, ligaments, they don't have blood vessels, but bones are vascular, right? Bones are vascular. So the rupture of the blood vessels will cause bleeding, and blood accumulates in that area. That is called hematoma. Hematoma, accumulation of blood in the tissue. After a while, what happens? A soft bony tissue, actually it is a cartilaginous tissue, fibrocartilage, is formed. So fibrocartilaginous callus is formed, soft cartilage tissue. That is next. Then that cartilage is converted to bone. So bony callus is formed from the cartilaginous, fibrocartilaginous callus. And after the bone, new bone is formed from the fibrocartilage, what happens? We see that the surface of the bone where the pieces join together, the surface is rough because the filling occurs roughly. So bone remodeling is needed. What is that? If you see, after the new bone is formed, if this is the area of fracture, new bone is formed, the surface of the bone is kind of rough here. So excess bone tissue must be removed from here to polish it. So that is done by who? You already know. Who will break the bone? Excess bone here. Osteoclast. So we know, if you get a fracture in the wall of your house, okay? In the wall of the house. Now you have to fix it, right? What you do? You buy the, is that called speckle or is that, that's white cement, right? So you buy that and first you just put to fill, right? Put it to fill the area roughly, right? Then you let it dry and use the paper, sandpaper or something else to remove excess, stuff. So that is done by osteoclasts. That, if you have extra bone tissue, it should be destroyed. So that polishing part is done by the osteoclast. Make sense? Eventually the surface will get smooth. Okay. So that's the remodeling. So those are the steps. Another thing, just when the fibrocartilaginous callus is formed, new blood vessels are formed by branching. Okay. Rickets. Rickets indicate the bowing of the leg bones. This is a condition in which we see the bowing or bending of the leg bones in children. Happens due to lack of calcium or vitamin D. Same thing, because vitamin D helps in absorption of calcium, right? So lack of calcium or lack of vitamin D will cause lack of calcium. Often seen in the people in third world countries, like they don't get enough calcium rich food or don't get enough vitamin D, right? So the calcium is low, so the bone matrix cannot be formed enough bone matrix cannot be produced, because we know that matrix is mainly calcium, right? So the bones stay weak, and when we know that leg bones carry what? The body weight, right? Your arm bones don't carry the body weight. Who carries the body weight? Leg bone, right? So since the body weight is falling on the leg bones, gradually they will get what? Bowed or bent, curved. Make sense? Yes. Usually, no. One thing remember, probably I mentioned before, in anatomy, leg means this part. This is thigh. Okay, so remember, when we say leg, we indicate this. Okay. Generally, you say leg means the whole thing, right? But in anatomy, when I'll say thigh, that is the upper part, leg is the lower part. Usually, we see the bowing of the leg bones. Okay, that means the tibia fibula. Just know a couple more clinical conditions. So that's the rickets, bowing of the bones due to lack of calcium or vitamin D. Another condition that is called osteoporosis. Osteoporosis. That is the condition where you see many holes. Osteo means bone, pore means hole. You know that, pores. So many pores in the bones. That happens mostly in older women due to lack of estrogen. So that's the main reason, lack of estrogen, sex hormone. Another condition that is called rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis. This is the inflammation of soft tissue structures in your joint. You know that in the joint you have the cartilages, soft tissue, you have the capsule, joint capsule. So those are the soft tissue structures. If inflammation occurs in soft tissue structures, that is called the rheumatoid arthritis. If the pores are formed in the bone itself, that's the osteoporosis. Yes, just know that. Osteoporosis. Sorry, osteoporosis. Okay, so those are a couple other clinical conditions. Here you see the normal spongy bone and osteoporotic bone. You see many holes. Bone becomes very weak. From outside you may not realize, but inside it is very weak. Okay. So done. Long lecture, right?